I want everyone to have the same amount of wine at the start because we're going to sort of go through the process of how you assess a wine, at least the basic entry level things to think about. We don't quite have all the tools, but what we're going to look at is things that you consider. So when you hold your glass of wine, there's a reason there's a stem here. Okay, your hand is at 98 degrees or warmer, depending if you're nervous and in a social environment. So you don't want to be doing this, especially to a white wine. Okay, and by the way, if your sparkling wine is warm, don't drink that shit, okay? You only drink ice cold sparkling wine, okay? There's your first rule. So it's okay for that to frost up your glass. But here for red wines, you can hold your glass like this, whatever works for you, but the stem is there so your hand doesn't transfer. Now, if you have a white wine like the Vermentino Superiore I poured tonight, when they pour your white wine and it clouds up your glass, in general, you're drinking your wine too cold. When you have wines that are served too cold, Americans serve white wine too cold. Okay, so you have your white bottle of white wine in the fridge. When you open it up to drink it that night, don't put it back in there. Let it warm up, at least an hour on the temperature on the counter, and stop seeing it frost up, and then you're going to see the wine open up, okay? What we're going to do is evaluate the wine on clarity and color. We're going to look at aromatics. We're going to look at mouthfeel, and we're going to look at finish, okay? And what we're all going to sort of do is we're just going to go through this step by step. But what you want to do is consistently your own internal method for judging a wine. You have to be consistent based on what your palate is. The first thing you do is we're going to look at the color. And unfortunately, all I have is this white plate, okay? So if everyone can take their glass with the skillet and glass logo side down, and I want you to hold the plate roughly 6 inches below the glass. Tilt it so the wine doesn't come out. So glass, plate flat, glass at an angle. Then look down over it, okay? Can you see the whole logo? Can you see the bottom of the logo? Is the wine clear? Would you call this color, you can lift it up, would you call it red, purple, UV, violet? What would you call this? Garnet? Would you say this is more red than purple? So one thing you're going to look at, when you look at the edges of a wine, and right up at the top of the glass, if you see these purple or UV hues, that's going to tell you the age of the wine. Okay? It's going to imply that it's a younger wine. Okay? Now, this wine right here, this color, this is Sangiovese. So this is like a Pinot Noir. So it doesn't have a ton of color. So this is at the height of the color. This is a beautiful, clear garnet, like a medium to light red color. Color is a funny thing. When you take a red grape, any red grape, and you squeeze it as a berry, it gives you clear juice. Okay? So all the color in red wine comes from skin contact. So when we take the grapes from the vineyard, we want the berries to go into a tank, and then we want them to be held at a low temperature, below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, where the berries can start to break open and the color starts to leach out. So for delicate wines like Pinot Noir and Sangiovese, you're going to have a longer cold soak time, okay? And you're still going to get a delicate color because about the 5th day of that wine being in a tank, that's its max color. It just loses color for the rest of its life, whether it's fermented for 10 months or 20 months or 30 months. Then it goes to bottle, it continues to lose color. So this is still a young and vibrant wine, but it is not the most vibrant color. There is clarity and then cloudiness. So they can mix, they can affect your view. This wine is very clear, but that just tells you it was filtered. It doesn't say anything about the wine quality. But unfortunately, we are humans and our brain processes things based on our experiences faster than we can understand. So the truest way to taste red wines is to put this in a blue glass where you can't see the color. You have your own internal palates that is based on your experiences. So think about that. When you evaluate a wine, try to do it the same way every time. And that statement's going to apply to the next stage. So now give this wine a beautiful swirl, and you're going to see these legs. And this thing, they say, the longer the legs hang, the more alcohol you have. That unfortunately is not true, okay? It can tell you something about the consistency and the staying power of the wine, but it doesn't necessarily reflect alcohol content. So give this a swirl, and what I want you to do is smell it. Close your eyes, smell, don't taste, just smell. And I want you guys to give me some descriptors of what you're smelling, because I can tell you what you're smelling, but that's not fair. I go last, you guys go first. So smell this wine. Do we have any descriptors? What do you guys get? I'll help you out. First thing, we're thinking about fruit. Is it red fruit or black fruit? Red fruit, darker berries. What do you guys think? Don't be wrong. Cherry? It's red fruit. So we're thinking more cranberry, cherries, maybe a black cherry. Or maybe, if you want to get technical, what type of cherry? Is it a maraschino? I mean, but these are the type of things you think about. There's really no wrong answer here. And so, but the idea is to start thinking about things in a slightly more technical way. So go ahead and taste the wine if you haven't. And does what you smell in the aromas translate to the flavors? Because they don't always match up. There are two sources of tannins that come into wine. The first source is the grapes themselves, but then there are different tannins in the grapes. This is fruit tannin based. So oak tannins look very similar to fruit tannins, but oak comes with these other flavors, like eugenol smells like cinnamon. Vanillin smells like vanilla, okay? Whiskey lactone smells like girls, smells like ladies lying in the sun with coconuts and suntan lotion. It's also the predominant flavor in Maker's Mark, okay? So the major difference between American oak and French oak is the presence of two compounds, vanilla and whiskey lactone, which we refer to in the wine industry as sweet oak, okay? So whiskey lactone is 100 times more prevalent in American oak than French oak. And I have to tell you, I love bourbon, but I hate it in my wine. So I only use French oak, okay? And I'm American. If I could use America first, trust me, I would, but I just can't do it. So that's the major difference between American oak and French oak. These two sweet oak compounds. And that is why Kentucky bourbon has to be aged in 100% American oak. That's where the sweet oak flavor comes from. So those are things to think about. It's just try to be consistent in what you determine as cherry. This is what I'm calling cherry or red fruit. Try to keep an open mind and then be consistent how you evaluate wines. But there's no perfect system and no one can tell you that you're doing it wrong. Just try to do it the same way every time so that you have your own internal barometer, for lack of a better word, and how you evaluate wines. And then the more wine you drink, the more you will learn. I promise you that. We age in these oak barrels called boaties, and they are 660 gallons. So they're the size of 11 of your normal barriques. Like the same whiskey barrels, they're all 58 to 60 gallons. So we age them, and our idea is to emphasize at Raffledini, it's the terroir. The idea is to not let the winemaker influence the wine that much. We're trying to show you what our vineyard gives you, and the oak, the new oak that we use, is only there to support the wine, but not to be the dominant feature. And so, you know, there are some amazing wines that are made with 100% new oak, but that takes the type of experience that we don't have yet as Americans. So yes, we call them neutral barrels because people don't like to be called old, and barrels get real mad when you call them old. So, I mean, I don't know. It's a bad luck charm. So, neutral, which means, okay, if you buy a brand new barrel, after 3 years of use, it becomes neutral because the previous wines have absorbed all those oak tannins and oak flavors. So, the longer you leave that oak stave open to a flame, changes the molecules in that oak that then are absorbed into the wine. So a heavy toast, like if you have a wine that's char and campfire and bacon, that's coming from a heavier toast. If you have a more restrained, like something with a little vanilla and cinnamon, that's coming from a medium toast. And then a light toast is even more esoteric. But you can't learn this stuff until you put a wine in the barrel and taste it. And guess what? No barrel tastes the same, okay? You put the same wine from the same tank into 8 different barrels, all gonna taste different, okay? And that's where that's when the science stops and the art begins. So I don't know if that was too much for you, gentlemen, but it was something to think about, I hope. So, cheers.
Thank you.